Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we start in a new Chumash. The new Chumash has a special name. Apart from Sefer Shemot, it has every Chumash has another name. You know what the other name of Sefer Chumash? Of Sefer Chumash Shemot?
Oh.
Yeah.
Sefer Geula?
Yes, Sefer HaGeula, the redemption, the Galut and the redemption, the exile and the redemption. And so it's a lot about redemption, about how we redeem ourselves. Even though only the first part is speak directly about Exodus and the redemption, also receiving the Torah is some kind of redemption. And also the last part of the book, which speaks on the construction of the Mishkan, it's also the redemption. It's all the redemption is not concluded until the Mishkan is built, because the final redemption is when Hashem lives inside Am Yisrael, which is the purpose of the Mishkan. So also today we are going to learn about the beginning of the redemption. What can provoke or start, commence the redemption, right? And well, so we have a verse that it's critical, because it's the first time it says that Hashem heard the voice of Am Yisrael and decided to do something. Okay, so until there, it doesn't say anything like that. It just says that Am Yisrael was enslaved in Egypt and they worked hard, and then Moshe was born and he had to run away, and he arrived to Midian. And after telling that Moshe arrived to Midian and stayed with Yitro before the story of the sneh, right? So we have like 2 or 3 verses that after Moshe arrived to Midian, before the story of the sneh, of the revelation in the sneh, there are 2 verses that speak suddenly about Am Yisrael again. Right? The focus was on Moshe, and then we are taking the focus again on Am Yisrael and Egypt, and after that we turn into Moshe. What it says in these verses, it says, this is what it says here in the beginning of the page, Vayhi bayamim harabim hahem, in these many days. So the Mefarshim say that actually when Moshe Rabbeinu ran away from Egypt, he was, according to Chachamim, 12 years old. Ramban say when he ran away from Egypt, when he killed the people, right, and he had to run away. Ramban say even if it's not, it's midrash, even if it's not more than 20. And when he returned to Egypt, how old was he? 80. So 60 years Moshe was away. And Ramban asked when exactly he arrived to Midian. What happened in these 60 years? There are many legends, and some say he was a king of Ethiopia, and over there he got married with some Ethiopian black girl, and this is a girl that Miriam is speaking, not Zipporah. When Miriam speaking about the black girl that he was married to, it's because he was a king of Ethiopia. So there are some midrashim, there are some explanations that he also was in Eretz Israel, so Moshe did enter to the land of Israel according to that. Anyway, it was many years that he wasn't there. That's what he says, "Vayhi bayamim harabim hahem." Maybe, so it's when you see in the verses that Miriam speaks on Moshe, it doesn't say the word Tzipporah. It said about the woman that he married, that the black woman that he married, because he got married with a black woman. That's what he says. That's the woman. He doesn't say the name. So we just assume that it was Tzipporah, but who says? Also, for example, I didn't notice that until this year. When you read about the story of the sister keeping Moshe Rabbeinu, who was this sister? Miriam. But it doesn't say Miriam. It says his sister. Her name is not mentioned there. I mean, I had to read that again. I just read that. But I didn't see the name Miriam all over the parasha. It doesn't appear in this parasha. It's interesting. It says his sister. Maybe he had another sister. People sometimes have more than one sister. Later it says Miriam HaNeviah Achot Aaron, the sister of Aaron. It says later. Okay, anyway, returning to here, after many years, ויהי בימים הרבים ההם, וימות מלך מצרים. מלך מצרים passed away. ויאנחו בני ישראל מן העבודה. Le'anach, it's like to say, how do you say? Groaned? Maybe, I don't know. When you, so from the hard work, they groaned from the hard work, vayiz'aku, and they screamed, yelled, cried. ותעל שבעתם אל האלוהים מן העבודה. And then the scream arrived to God. It doesn't say that they prayed to Hashem. It says that they cried. And their cry, their weeping, I don't know. What? Weeping. Yeah, it arrived to God. וישמע אלוהים את נאקתם, he heard their crying, and then, ויזכור אלוהים את בריתו. So most of the explanations that they did pray, so ויזעקו, it's not that they just screamed from pain, they cried to Hashem, right? They prayed. So חכמים, the Midrash say, there are different words to describe תפילה. We say להתפלל, we say also רינה, and there are many words. One of them is זעקה. זעקה is when you are yelling, making desperate. It's liz'ok.
Cry out.
Cry out. Maybe, yes, that's different translation. It's like crying strongly. So anyway, let's say they prayed to Hashem, and then Hashem heard that. And then he remembered his covenant with Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Vayar Elohim bnei Yisrael, and then he saw them again. Vayeda Elohim. And he knew what? That he had to redeem them. So there is several questions here. What does it mean exactly? So, Rabbeinu Bachya says that here we have the 10 Sfirot. The name God appears several times, and we have Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Which one of them is Sfira? How many times the name God appears here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times the name God. 3, the patriarchs. And I don't know what are the other 2 that he mentioned here. Okay, anyway, returning to that, what provoked them to start crying? The hard work. But what is the relationship with the fact that the king of Egypt passed away? It looks like they start crying because the king of Egypt passed away. What it has to do with each other? So there are several explanations that can be said easy. What do you think? Why? It looks like before that, maybe they also cried, but not so hard. And suddenly the king of Egypt died, and then they start, after many, many years that they were slaves, suddenly he died, and then they start crying to Hashem. What's happened? Why after he died, they start crying? What do you think?
Didn't they become slaves to Joseph and his brothers then?
Yeah, that's 60 years ago, more than 60 years ago. That's the question. What's happened now? We are talking now, what?
Maybe they think it'll be worse.
They thought they're going to be worse with the new king.
Says the new king didn't remember Joseph.
So that's 60 years ago.
No, who just died.
When did he die exactly? When did this other king, when did Pharaoh die?
Yeah, so it says, ויקום מלך חדש של מצרים אשר לא ידע את יוסף. So there was a new king that didn't know Yosef, and then he was afraid for Israel, and he started to enslave them. Right, so that is the beginning. And it says that it was hard to them. We are not talking about, this is another case. After many, many, many years, בימים הרבים ההם, after many years, maybe after 60 years, this king died. And then they start crying again, and then Hashem redeems them. Before that, no. And only after that we read that Hashem appeared to Moshe in the sneh. So it looks like here, that's what I say, it's the beginning of the redemption. It starts with how do you say, the death, with the death of Melech Mitzrayim. That's what starts everything. That it looks like that. Until there, everybody was okay, more or less. We are working hard, but we survived. And then suddenly he died, and everything is changed.
Maybe they realize that maybe we can be free now.
What's caused them to understand that suddenly?
It's a change. The king died.
We know this Pharaoh was quite vicious.
The
Right.
former one or the new one?
The one
The-
this is not the same one who said, to cast the sons into the river eventually.
No, that's the former one. That's the one who died.
Oh.
The one who died was the one who said, let's throw the children to the river and everything. Again, let's go again. How the story goes. The Chumash starts with 70 people go to Egypt, they start to multiply, there are many, many people. Then the king of Egypt that didn't know Yosef, didn't know or forgot or wanted to forget, whatever, he said, we have to resolve this problem that called Jews. Let's do the final solution. What would be the final solution for the Jews? Let's make them start working hard and hard and hard. It didn't work. They keep making children, right? And they say, you know what? Let's kill all the boys. Okay, so he started killing the boys. He told to the midwives to do that. They didn't do that. And they told to his people to do that, and they killed a lot of children. And then Moshe was born with this king, this vicious king, right? All this time, they are working hard. Moshe grew up in the palace. Apparently, the decree about killing the boys stopped over there, more or less. So it wasn't for all the years they were in Egypt. It was only in the beginning to kill the boys. So it stopped. Moshe grew up in the palace. And then he go up to see what's happening with the people of Israel. Apparently, they told him he's Jew, or he grew up knowing he's a Jew. Or after that, he told him he wanted to see what's going on with my people. And then when he was 20, when he was 15, when he was 12, more or less, he's going out, he's seeing the Egypt hitting the Jew, he killing the Egypt. The day after that, he saw two Jews fighting. And then Paro finds out that he killed the Egyptian, and he wanted to kill him. And he ran away. All this time, the Jews are slaves. Keeping being slave for 60 years that Moshe Rabbeinu is wandering around in the world, marrying princesses in Ethiopia, going to Eretz Israel, whatever, right? 60 years. Getting married with Midian, having children in Midian, 60 years, Am Yisrael keep being slaves. All this time, maybe they're crying, not too hard. And then, after these 60 years, this vicious king that killed children died. He died. And then Am Yisrael start crying, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu hears him. What's happening here? So you said, until now, they didn't think about it, and now they understood they can be free. Why they understood now?
But wasn't the Paro, he said he was like God, he was immortal, now he's mortal.
So they believed he's mortal, is immortal?
No, but maybe they see he's vulnerable.
They saw there is a chance, you say. Suddenly they saw there is a chance because the king died, and it looks like in this point, suddenly the work was too hard to suffer, to stand it anymore. So they started, okay, let's start seeing the explanations, right? There are different explanations, and maybe the most famous that every child learn in school, I mean, every child that go to a Jewish school that learn Rashi. So Rashi, it's a very famous Rashi in Midrash. It's not Rashi himself, he brings a Midrash. He didn't really die. This vicious king, not only was vicious, it was only very long, had a very, very long life. And he not really died in Nitztarea. What is Nitztarea? He had Tzarat. And his magicians, his advisor told him there is a solution for that. You must kill children, 300 children a day, and have a bath with their blood. The first, how do you say blood? What?
Blood.
No, was the blood lab, yeah. When they told about the Jews that they're using blood to, what's called blood? Libel, yeah. It's the first blood libel, that if you kill babies and washing your body with their blood, then you're going to be saved. So what's happened is that really it was unsupportable. And then they cried, and then Hashem heard. So this is the explanation of Rashi. Okay, that's one explanation. In Midrash, they're asking against Rashi, against this Midrash. It doesn't say that they cried because of dying children. It said they cried because of the work. Right? It says, not from the fact that he was killing children. Anyway, that's the explanation of Rashi. Ramban brought the words of Rashi and said, yeah, this is Midrash, but al derech hapshat. We can understand that like in a more literal way. Minag kol hana'evadim lemelech bliya al rasha. Usually, when you are a slave of a bad king, a vicious king, שיהיו מצפים ומחכים ליום מותו. That they are waiting to the way when he die, right? You're waiting in today, we're not waiting to a person to die, we're waiting to elections, right? When it's gonna end, this nightmare, when this nightmare is gonna end. מצפים ומחכים ליום מותו. וכאשר ראו שמת המלך, so they saw the king has died, and there's a new one, and they have hopes that maybe now it's going to be better, so you don't be disappointed after the election if it's not getting any better. They saw it's not only it's not going to go better, it's going worse. וכיוון שראו שמת המלך יענכו מאוד ממלוך אדם חנף מרשיע מן הראשון. There arrived another king worse than the first one. So the king died, the bad king died, and there was another one who was worse. So this was like, we cannot stand it anymore. כי אמרו, אבדה תקוותנו, נגזרנו לנו. This is a verse, אבדה תקוותנו, נגזרנו לנו. We lost our hope. We were decreed, destined to die. We prefer to die than live. ויבחרו מוות מחיים. וזה טעם נאקתם, כי נאקו נאקת חלל. Okay, it's so this is the explanation of Ramban. So until now, they had hope, once there are elections, we're going to have a better government. After the elections, they understood, no, it's not going to be better. And then they lost their hope, and then they cried harder. And then Hashem heard, and then the redemption started. Okay, this is another explanation. So we already two explanations. Let's see the third one. קדם הקדוש ברוך הוא והמית מלך מצרים. זה חזקוני now. חזקוני is also מפרש from the Middle Age, I think also from France, like Rashi, and is also committed to the pshat, literal meaning. Right? We have מפרשים that go more according to the Midrash, Kabbalah. חזקוני is usually according to the pshat, to the literal meaning, and it says that, yeah, you don't read in the verse correctly. The fact that the king died, it doesn't have to do anything with the fact that they start crying. They cried all the time. It should be related to what we are going to read in the next chapter. In the next chapter, Hashem is going to tell Moshe, go to Egypt, and he told him, ויאמר השם אל משה במדיין לך שוב מצרים כי מתו כל האנשים המבקשים את נפשך. You can return to Egypt because all the people that wanted you die already passed away. When this has happened? When the king died. Okay, so it's not the reason why they cried, it's the reason why Moshe could return to Egypt. Until now, he couldn't return to Egypt because the king wanted to kill him. Once the king died, so again, it's pshat. If we can understand that also other reason. And now, Amek Davar, I think one of you said his explanation. Amek Davar, it's the explanation of the Perush of the Natziv Mivolozin, Rav Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. So he says, וימולך מלך מצרים, והיה באותו יום, יום מנוחה מן העבודה, כדרך המלוכה, שהיו כל שרי פרעה טרודים בהספדו. He said, when a king died, there is a free day, a vacation, 1 day of vacation, right? Yeah, of mourning, there are going to be hesped, eulogy, and people are going to, last week, well, he's not king, but Jimmy Carter passed away, so they stopped the stock market for 1 day, on Thursday, right? So it's a day that remembering, honoring the king, and nobody is working. Once you don't work, you have time to think. וגם את העבדה והעברים הניחו בזה היום. And also the slaves, they left them 1 day. וינחו בני ישראל מן העבודה, שבכל הימים לא הניחו להם לחקור ולהתייעץ על צפוניהם ולהתענח על זה מקוצר רוח מעבודה קשה. So all the days, they didn't have time to think about the situation. I think we talked about that last year. When you are working too hard, you don't have time to think about your situation, and you just keep working without making any changes. This is the reason why Paro, someone wrote in the chat. Yeah. Okay. What did you say? He wrote a message and I forgot what I started to say. Yeah. We talked when Paro heard the first time Moshe and Aaron that came to him to ask for liberation, what he said, let's do harder work. When they're going to have harder work, they're not going to have time to think, so they will forget about freedom, liberty. You don't have time to think about this nonsense when you have to work too hard, right? So let's do the work harder and harder and harder. And that's the reason they couldn't think. But now they have 1 day free. Once you have 1 day free and you know how life can be, how fun can be to live, right? So then when you are crying for the war. אבל ביום הזה מתענחים על זה הרבה מה יהיה בסופם. בחילם יהיה כן חס ושלום. So they had time to think and say, what's going to happen with us? We have time to cry, let's cry today. So they only cried this day and Hashem heard. Once they cried once, already Hashem heard. And then so we could understand. So they had time to think. And from this day on, they thought all the time. But it looks like the Netziv say in this day they thought about it, about the situation. They start crying in this day. And it was enough so Hashem to redeem them. So we can see that even one time you prayed, sometimes it can lead to the redemption. Okay, all these explanations are according to the Pshat. Meaning you can, or Midrash or Pshat, meaning a simple explanation, but the question, what is it teaching us? Why it's important? Because again, it looks like a little bit more essential than that. Because again, until now, there wasn't any sign for redemption. All the things that were happening in the story until now, we saw the Egyptians being harder and harder on Am Yisrael, and Moshe Rabbeinu has to run away. A little bit about Moshe, but we don't see any sign that it's going to end in some point. It doesn't speak about that. When the first time it speaks about the fact that it's going to end soon, here. So it looks like what provoked everything was the death of this king. So in order to, so we can say, okay, so they start thinking about it, they had time to pray, they understood, they lost their hope, maybe as explanation why they start crying, and then we say, once they prayed from all their heart, then the redemption started. So we can say that to start any kind of redemption, not only the general redemption of the nation, also our personal redemption, you should pray from all your heart, and then Hashem will start the process. I just want to say that, in parentheses, that usually the term personal redemption, it sounds very Christian for me. You say, Jesus is going to redeem you. Have you been redeemed by Jesus, right? So, but it's not. Personal redemption meaning developing or going out from your lower level and going to a higher level. This is redemption, personal redemption, right? So when we're talking about personal redemption or national redemption or global universal redemption, it starts in a point when you cry to Hashem with all your heart, and then Hashem is waiting for that, let's say. But then in the Chasidut, they're going a little bit deeper in this question. Let's say I brought several of them. Well, two. Let's see these two explain. There are more, but this is like the base. It says, וינחו בני ישראל מן העבודה, ויזעקו, ותעל שבתם אל האלוקים מן העבודה. So בני ישראל cried because of the work, they cried to Hashem, it's arrived to God, etc. And then he says, like we said, וכאן מתחלת הישועה. Here is when the redemption starts. כיוון שהיו זועקים, מיד ותעל שעבתם שהתחילה הישועה. Once they start praying, immediately it's arrived to Hashem and the redemption is started. And then he had something important. כי עד כאן לא היה בהם שום התעוררות לזעוק ולהתפלל. So until now, there was nothing inside them that pushed them to start crying and praying. לא היה בהם שום התעוררות. להתעורר is to awake, right? There was they didn't awake to start praying. ומכיוון שרצה השם יתברך להושיעם, התעורר בהם זעקה. וזהו התחלת הישועה, כשאדם מתעורר לזעוק להשם. And then he says something very new. I mean, I didn't see this idea in other places before. When Hashem wanted to redeem you, or to redeem them, then he made them crying. Meaning it wasn't because anything that happened because of the king or whatever. Hashem decided now it's time of redemption. When Hashem decided that it's time of redemption, it creates this feeling inside their hearts, we are bad now. They were bad the same a day before and a year before and maybe 10 years before. There was the same. It's not necessarily that something worse happened, but they didn't think about it at this moment. When they start to understand, to feel that something is missing here, that I'm not happy with my life, meaning that Hashem wanted them to feel that. And then they start crying, and then the redemption arrived. So where it starts? From Hashem. It's something interesting, because again, the implementation of that in our lives, it's very interesting. Let's say suddenly you start feeling unhappy. It's the sign from Hashem that now you have to start a process of redemption. If you feel happy about something, I mean, about your work, I don't know, and suddenly you start feeling you are not happy, this, even though you are doing the same as you did yesterday, nothing changed, but you start feeling unhappy, this is, according to that, it's a sign that arrived from Hashem. You should start a process of redemption by praying. Okay, it's not necessarily the redemption would be to change work. Maybe it's to find again your happiness inside the same work, right? And just give an example of work. Of course, it can be anything, right? But the fact that you start feeling about something, so it may start with really something that's getting worse, right? Chas v'shalom, someone got sick. Okay, it's clearly something that you have to awake and start a process of tshuva, right? Because something really happened. But if you are in the same situation as yesterday, and suddenly it starts bothering you, and it didn't bother you yesterday, the fact that it starts bothering you, this is a sign from Hashem. Yeah, we'll see about that later. The king, it's in this explanation, it doesn't in the next one, it says, the king of Egypt represents many times some kind of slavery. It's not the person. When you are enslaved to not thinking about life. That's the idea of Egypt. So when this died, meaning Hashem is sending you this sign to be awake. We'll see in the next Torah in the next idea of Baal Shem Tov. I think it's the same idea, only one speak about one aspect and the other about the other aspect. We'll see about that. But he doesn't mention that they start crying because of the king. It said, for some reason, Hashem decided now to awake them, to send them their sign. Then they start feeling they need to pray, and then the process of redemption starts. And then that's what he gave example for that. וכמו שאמר דוד המלך עליו השלום, ברוך אלוקים אשר לא הסיר תפילתי וחסדו מאיתי. So David say to Hashem, this verse is a little bit strange. He says, thanks God, or blessed be God, that he didn't remove my tefillah. What does it mean? He didn't remove my tefillah. You decide if to pray or not to pray. What does it mean? Hashem didn't remove your tefillah. You can pray whenever you want. What does it mean? It means that he didn't remove this desire to pray. When I have desire to pray, when I feel that I lack in something, that I don't have something, and I have the desire to pray, this comes from Hashem. Hashem didn't remove my desire to pray. היינו, כיוון שנמצא בו תפילה, מהר השם יתברך חסדו. Because Hashem, he has tefillah inside himself, so Hashem is going to redeem him, give him grace, chesed, or kindness. שמקודם שרוצה השם יתברך להושיע, אין האדם רואה את החיסרון שלו. Okay, this is the chidush here, that's the new thing, the new idea. Before Hashem want to redeem you, you won't notice your chisaron. Chisaron, what you're lacking, your defect, so before Hashem wanted to redeem a person, he doesn't notice what is lacking. That's the next one. He doesn't know what is missing. אבל כשהשם יתברך רוצה להושיע, when Hashem wanted to save you, to redeem you, מראה לו שורש חסרונו. He show him the root of his חיסרון, of his defects. וממילא יראה כי כל הסתעפות חסרונותיו הם רק מהשורש הזה, ושולח לו כוח תפילה וצעקה להשם יתברך. So he's going to see that all the problems that I have are going out from this root. And then Hashem send him, is that not only sending him the feeling that I'm lacking something, he also sending him the power of praying and tzedakah and yearning to Hashem. הוא מתחיל להרעיש על זה להשם יתברך, and then he start making noise, meaning praying to Hashem, ואז השם יתברך מאיר לו חסדו. Okay, so and then Hashem redeemed him. Okay, so again, the conclusion for Mea Shiloach, or the idea that Mea Shiloach teaches, that when you feel you are lacking something, this is a calling from Hashem. Hashem is calling you. Right? Don't ignore it. Don't say, no, I have to feel, I have to live, I have to continue, I have to survive. No, if you feel something lacking in your life, it's a good thing. It's a sign from Hashem that it's time to start the process of improving it. It's not just another challenge that how you can keep living. Maybe you won't change anything. I know, maybe you have to keep living, but I'm saying, don't ignore this feeling. You must try to deal with it and the first step in dealing with it is praying to Hashem on this. Hashem wants you to pray for him, to him, about that thing that you're feeling, and then without Hashem, we're going to start the process of redemption. Yeah, you want to say something?
I don't know, I just had a thought, probably that's not related, but I've always wondered why when Moses is keeps showing signs to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh keeps ignoring or changing his mind, and it says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's something similar. Maybe.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
This is exactly the idea of he wanted.
And it's, Pharaoh, maybe by doing that, maybe he was hoping that Pharaoh would fight against that and
or maybe he didn't want it. That's exactly what's the opposite. Right? When he wants to redeem you, he will make you understand that you can change. If he doesn't want you to be redeemed, you just stick to what you have. Okay, but it's related exactly to Paro, what I said before, the death of the king of Egypt, because Paro is exactly that. It's ignoring the situation. It's not knowing. So this is in the name of the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov, the father of Chasidut, the one who started the Chasidut. He says, הנה, זה היה סיבת גלות מצרים, שלא ידעו חסרונם. He said, the reason or the root for the exile of Egypt, that they didn't know what they're lacking. So this is all the idea of being in Galut of Egypt. There are other kinds of Galut, but the Galut of Egypt is not knowing that you are in Galut. So they took them many dozens of years, decades of years, to understand that they are lacking something. So only until the end, they start praying to Hashem. Because in all this time, they didn't know they are lacking something. So this is similar to that.
They not know they're slaves, or just because they're so busy?
No, they knew they are slaves, but they didn't think that something unnatural in that. Many people are
It
slaves.
was normal.
Yeah. I mean, people can be slave to many things and not notice that they're not living the right life. It can be slavery, literal slavery, but it can be also other kind of slavery. You say, I ask, how people that are addicted to something that continue living like that? No, they think that is a natural way. Oh, it's too hard to them. As we say, this is the reason for Galut Mitzrayim, that didn't know what they're lacking. כמבואר בכתבי הארי, זכרו לברכה לחיי העולם הבא. Like the Ari says. What Ari says, כי בגלות מצרים נסתלק הדעת. Ari says that in the exile of Egypt, they didn't have דעת, understanding or knowing. וזה שאמר הכתוב, וירא השם, כי שר לראות יעוין שם. This is interesting, it's related to another דבר תורה. When Moshe Rabbeinu went to the sneh, right? It was in the sneh, in the first revelation. It says that Moshe, what?
It's the bush?
The bush, yeah, the burning bush. So it says that Moshe noticed something unusual, and then he went to see what it is. And then it says, how do we understand usually the story? Hashem put something to attract him to this place so he can speak with him. But the verse doesn't say so. The verse says, Vayar Hashem ki sar lirot. Hashem saw that he went. And then he talked with him. Meaning only because Moshe Rabbeinu noticed, that's the reason Hashem spoke with him. He wasn't ignoring the situation. He was open to his environment and reacted to what's happening. So this is Moshe Rabbeinu exactly. Moshe wasn't ignoring things. He saw Egyptian hitting Jew, is intervening. He saw two Jews fighting, he's not ignoring. Moshe is the opposite of ignoring the situation. He's always trying to resolve the situation. He saw the shepherds torture the daughters of Yitro, is engaging himself in the situation. So Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who is seeing what's happening and want to change it. And that's what Hashem saw. Vayar Hashem ki sar lirot. When Hashem saw that he is reacting to the situation, then he chose him. Only because Moshe Rabbeinu reacted to that, that's the reason that Hashem chose him, because he can be the one who is aware to the situation, he's not ignoring, he's not, doesn't know what's going on, so he's the one who can redeem Am Yisrael. So they say, זהו שאמר הכתוב, וירא השם כי שר לראות. לכן היו בגלות אצל פרעה, בחינת העורף, מקום השכחה. So it says, פרעה, it's in גימטריה, העורף. You see, it's the same letters. Right? העורף and פרעה. Only they added the vav, but you can take off the vav. פרעה is עורף. What is עורף? Am Yisrael is called קשה עורף. It's tough or hard. How do you say?
Stiff neck.
Stiff neck, right? מקום השכחה. When you are, how do you say, עקשן, stiff neck. What? Stubborn. 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 Yeah, so stubborn, it's when, it's מקום השכחה. It's a place of forgetfulness. Forgetfulness, yeah. Forgetfulness, meaning you're just stiff neck, sticking to that what you know, and you forget about the possibility of that exists God, that there is other way to behave or to live, etc. לכן אמר פרעה, לא ידעתי את השם. So he brings several proofs to the fact that the problem with פרעה, and this is the meaning of the exile of Egypt, that people weren't aware. They didn't have da'at, no knowledge or awareness. עד שנתגלה בעולם בחינת משה, שהוא בחינת הדעת. Only when Moshe appears in the world, meaning after the 60 years, after in the end, when he arrived he got married with Tzipporah and he started to be a shepherd, then he arrived to the world, שהוא בחינת הדעת, אז וימות מלך מצרים. Then the aspect of Melech Mitzrayim has died, not necessarily the person, also the person, but the person on what all what he represents. This is meaning the forgetfulness of God, the lack of awareness, not knowing what is lacking. This is died, and this is when Am Yisrael start crying. Right? So as when Moshe appears, meaning knowledge or awareness appears, then the king of Egypt died, שהוא פרעה העורף, שנסתלק השכחה ובא בחינת דעת לעולם, when the aspect of knowledge or awareness arrived to the world, אז ידעו חסרונם. Then they are understood that they are lacking, that the situation is not the right one. לכן ויאנחו בני ישראל מן העבודה, שחסרו עבודת השם יתברך, ותעל שבתם אל אלוקים מן העבודה, וכל זה על ידי ומשה היה רואה וגומר. So, and then he says, ויאנחו בני ישראל מן העבודה. So until now, they didn't have avodah here, he explained, as service of God, not the work of the slavery. They didn't have the service of God. And then, ותעל שבתם אל האלוקים מן העבודה. And then they could, it's like, before that, you understand what I'm not sure that I'm explaining good. ויאנחו בני ישראל מן העבודה. It says that they cried because of the work. What does it mean because of the word? Because of the lack of work, the lack of service of God. ויאנחו בני ישראל מן העבודה. And then ותעל שבתם אל האלוקים מן העבודה. And after that was before. And after that, they cry, arrive to God, מן העבודה, from the service of God. They remembered suddenly, they were aware suddenly that they have to serve God. And then start crying, and then it's when everything happened, right? So that happened when Paro died, and that happens when Moshe appears, right? So all of that is connected. When Moshe appears, Paro died, Am Yisrael is awakening, right? Awakening. ומאחר שהיה עיקר גלות מצרים, על ידי שנסתלק הדעת בחינת גלות הרוחני, שהיו בגדר השכחה ולא דו חסרונם, לכן נמשך מגלות הרוחני גלות הגשמי. He said that all the materialistic galut, meaning the real tangible work, it starts because of the galut ruchani, because of the spiritual exile. When you are exiled from your connection with God, after that also they could enslave them in their bodies. Okay, so once they didn't have the mind, the da'at, they lost their liberty, the spiritual liberty, and after that, the material liberty. Yeah.
Is that why Levi wasn't enslaved?
Maybe it's it doesn't say so, but yeah, maybe Levi always kept this connection. מה שאין כן שידעו חסרונה בבחינת הדעת, אז עשו תשובה לתקן חסרונה ולהתקרב קץ הגאולה. So once you are aware, okay, so I think these two explanations are complete in each other. Each one of them speak about other stuff, other aspect of the same idea, that the Galut Mitzrayim is the lack of understanding, of awareness, and the redemption is when you start understanding that you are missing something. If you don't understand you're missing something, you're never going to start to achieve it, or you will never ask help from God to achieve it, etc. The difference is that one of them is emphasized more the fact that it's starting from Hashem, from that feeling, and the other, Baal Shem Tov, he doesn't speak about that. He just say, even I would say, for him, it depends on you. Search for what you're missing. You have to try to find by yourself what you're lacking and missing and start working on it. Okay, so it's not, according to the one, it comes from Hashem. According to the second, maybe it also comes from Hashem, but it also depends more on you. You should start the process of searching what I'm not good in, what I'm not happy with, what can I change, and then you start this process. And the process is what we are going to read and learn during the whole book of Shemot. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.